Hello, it's Tuesday, October 11th, 6:30 p.m., and this is a meeting of the Town of Oakville Council. In fact, it's the next to last meeting of this term of council. I invite everyone to join council in O Canada. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. In 1820, Indigenous people here began welcoming settlers from all over the British Empire. Soon, they were helping slaves escaping from the United States to settle here too. Today, our Indigenous founding partners are still here enjoying this land with us. They fish and camp under their treaty rights. They live in their thousands among us as neighbors and friends. Our Indigenous, white, and Black settlers created a community with an attractive degree of harmony and prosperity. In 1857, Ontario gave official recognition of Oakville as a town. At Town Hall, all of these years later, we fly the flag of the Mississaugas of the Credit beside the flags of Oakville, Ontario, and Canada. We fly these flags together to acknowledge our origins. People from all over the world are attracted to the livability we have created. We offer newcomers a warm spirit of welcome. We offer everyone our founding story so we all know what we are part of. We feel sorrow and distress for acts of racism and intolerance suffered across Canada and here at home. We want our future to be equitable and inclusive for everyone. The path of truth and reconciliation, we believe, can unite us all. Please keep well, stay safe, and let us on council know of any chance to be helpful to you and yours. And please let us know anytime you can help increase Oakville's harmony, prosperity, and livability. Madam Clerk, as I understand it, we have no regrets, but perhaps a late arriving member. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you. Council, it would be in order for a mover and seconder to either offer corrections or else adoption of the minutes listed in the agenda. Councillor Elgar and Councillor Duddick, thank you. Is there any objection? Madam Clerk, there being no objection, that motion carries and those minutes are adopted. It would now be in order for someone to move and someone to second that we resolve into committee of the whole. Councillor Chisholm and Councillor Lischina, thank you very much. There being, is there an objection? There being no objection, that carries and we're in committee of the whole. Now, Council, we have two consent items and we have two confidential consent items. And I would look for a motion to pass all four of those. Councillor Duddick? No.
Sorry, Your Worship. I just want to separate 7.2 if I might, but I'd be pleased to give you motion for the remainder.
Thank you. Is there, we don't need a second now. Is there any objection to Councillor Duddick's motion? There being none, they're carried. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Duddick, you wanted to speak about Burloak.
Yes, I just wanted to use this opportunity to ask if staff can provide us an update regarding the Kerr Street underpass, given that we're dealing with the Burl Oak one. And much as I rejoice for the Burl Oak one, I still have deep concerns regarding the lack of commitment from Metrolinx for the Kerr underpass.
Madam CAO, what can you share with everyone?
Through you, Mayor Burton, there has been regular correspondence or discussions with Metrolinx on the timing of the Kerr Street underpass in different ways of perhaps dealing with the projects, perhaps segmenting it, those types of things. I can't give you any certainty more than that in terms of how they're going to move forward, because I think they're still sorting those things out. And I would ask if Commissioner Fu or Director Stephen are on the line, if they had any additional information, they could maybe pop in.
Director
There's
Stephen
Jill.
approaches the mic.
Through you, Mayor Burton, as the CAO mentioned, we are continuing to have discussions with Metrolinx both on the delivery mechanism and how we can bring the Kerr Street grade separation back on board. We are committed to continuing with those discussions and trying to get that project back on the books as quickly as we can. Metrolinx is very much aware of our interest in making sure that that happens. And we expect our next discussions with them to take place in November. And so would have an update at a following council meeting or subsequent to that.
Thank you, Councillor Duddick. Councillor O'Meara?
Thank you, Your Worship. And just further on this element, I'm wondering if staff might outline sort of where the construction is happening, who's doing the construction, who's leading this this effort here. I've had a number of residents express their dismay that the town of Oakville is going to close the road, and the town of Oakville isn't going to have the project done at such and such a time. And I'm just wondering if staff can maybe outline who's driving the bus on this construction project, and where and what impact is it that we and our municipal colleagues in Burlington have. It might shed a little light just with regards to again, who's driving the bus and where the levers are. I would appreciate that clarification.
Well, Director Stephen is in the batter's box and ready to hit this one out of the park. Director Stephen?
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Through you, the project is being delivered in partnership with Metrolinx, Burlington, and Oakville. We are all partners in this project, but Metrolinx is the group that is responsible for the contract. They have retained the construction consortium who will be actually doing the work. The town and the city of Burlington both review the drawings that are submitted at various stages throughout the design build process to make sure that things are proceeding in accordance with the agreed upon terms. But all the work is being organized by Metrolinx. The closure that we've requested is something that it was a proposal that was brought forward by Project Co, the construction contractor for this, as a way to accelerate the project. And so we have recommended that we accept the extended closure so that we can get the road open sooner and to the traveling public in Oakville.
So then, Director, do we have built into that contract performance-based incentives? So if they are able to move those timelines up or move closures up quicker, that's a possibility? Or are those things that are factored into the contract, or are we able to speak to performance-based incentives on that realm?
Through Mayor Burton, the terms of the contract are between Project Co and Metrolinx. We have an established cost share of approximately $16 million based on the overall project cost of $177 million. At this point, we know that there would be time savings as a result of accepting this closure, but we are not yet aware if there would be any financial savings to the town or to the project. But that is something that we would report back to council on when we learn that information.
Well, I appreciate that, and not to issue any directions or to ask for that, but if in your conversations with Metrolinx and our partners in Burlington, those conversations did come up, I may ask my council colleagues' indulgence just to see that we ensure that Borough Oak isn't closed for a day longer than it needs to be. And if anything needs to happen there, that you might come back to council if there's an opportunity to ensure that that happens, that would be much appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor. Would you like to move the motion? Thank you. Council, is there any objection to the motion as moved by Councillor O'Meara? There being no objection, that carries. Congratulations, everybody, and thank you. That brings us to our first discussion item, Oakville Enterprises Corporation Quarterly Update. And it's with a great deal of pleasure that I welcome Rob Lister, the President and CEO of Oakville Enterprises Corporation, for his quarterly presentation. Welcome, Mr. Lister.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Burton, members of council. Really thrilled to be here this evening to be able to provide you an update on OEC. And today, after a few opening comments, my colleague Mary Caputi, who's Chief of Staff and Chief Operating Officer of Infrastructure Services, will provide the bulk of the presentation today. But we'll both be available for questions, of course. So, as council is aware, beginning of August, we completed the transaction with Enbridge. And this strategic partnership will seek to identify new opportunities in the energy and infrastructure sectors with a particular focus on supporting Canada's energy transition. So we're really excited about this opportunity that's in front of us at this point in time. Enbridge's North American reach also makes them an ideal partner as we continue to expand our operations geographically. So we're currently in planning mode as we look to pursue the opportunities that are in front of us. Michelle Haradens, Senior Vice President and President Gas Distribution and Storage at Enbridge, has been appointed to the OEC board. In one of the media releases, Michelle was quoted as saying, "We look forward to partnering with OEC to unlock innovative energy solutions as we advance the transition to a sustainable energy future." So I am thrilled to have Enbridge as part of the OEC team. Now, I'm pausing here because I'm going to bring us back to Oakville Hydro. So this weekend, changing gears, Thanksgiving weekend, we did have some power outages. And Thanksgiving weekend, power outages can be very inconvenient for customers, of course. However, it was pretty good this weekend. On Saturday in the late evening, in Ward 5, we had an underground cable failure on Elm Road in which 16 customers were without power for a few hours, from about 10 p.m. to about 1 o'clock. On Sunday, in Ward 4, in the Callaway Glazebook Circle area, we had a defective transformer from the morning through to mid-afternoon. Now, when the interruption first occurred, there were about 6,000 customers that had a momentary interruption, which is literally less than a second, so just a blip. However, there were 135 customers in that area that were without power through till about 3 in the afternoon. On Monday at 6 p.m. yesterday, we had another momentary outage in wards 5 and 6, but again, less than a second, and we suspect that was due to an animal contact on our high voltage lines. And then this morning, there were 7 customers affected on Lakeshore. There was a vehicle accident that took out the power for 7 customers. So from Saturday through to Monday, we just had the 2 small outages impacting 151 customers. Is what I have to present today on that. So overall, Oakville Hydro system reliability continues to be very good, and we are trending to have a better performance on system reliability this year than we did in 2021. So that concludes my remarks, Mr. Mayor, and I'll ask Mary to come up and provide the bulk of the presentation. Thank you. And I can come, or unless you want to ask me questions now about outages.
Thank you, Mr. Lister. We'll hear from Mary now. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I'll just take a second as she prepares to say that Council and I regret the inconvenience to any customers, no matter how few. Mary, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Rob. Good evening, Mayor Burton and councillors. It's my pleasure to be here tonight and provide an update on what has occurred in the last few months. I will provide business highlights, rewards and recognition, and our community giving. OEC provides infrastructure and energy services to hundreds of communities and cities. We are focused on helping support the long-term growth and the needs of the sector, and internet, such as internet broadband, electrification, gas distribution, utility infrastructure renewables, and expansion. With over 2,000 employees, OEC is making an impact. We operate across Canada with most of our activity in Ontario. However, we are gaining good growth in the other Canadian provinces. The steady path to growth has been instrumental to the success of OEC. Growing our customer base and our reach is paramount. We ensure that we support our customers' biggest challenges and their priorities. Whether it's through the recovery of the pandemic and navigating the most recent inflation challenges and supply chain delays, our teams continue to lead, innovate, and commit to excellence. OEC's diverse portfolio is advancing business performance with agility and flexibility in the changing economic conditions. Let's take a moment to highlight what we do. Through the years of our expansion, it has led us to new service revenue streams, depicted on this slide. With 10 operating brands, some of the services include locating and damage prevention, electricity, underground construction, engineering in the gas, electricity, and telecommunications sector. We also provide gas meter reading services, asset management support. We have our 24-hour, 7 days a week control room that's servicing Oakville Hydro, Halton Hills Hydro, and most recently, Welland Hydro. We develop and support location intelligence tools and platforms. In the renewable sector, we have solar and water generation assets, as well as geo-exchange throughout Ontario. We are positioned as turnkey service providers for Canada's infrastructure and utility partners. Our Western footprint has expanded. We are thrilled to have EPCOR as a new customer. EPCOR is headquartered in Edmonton and builds, maintains, and operates natural gas, water, electricity, and wastewater networks and facilities in Canada and the United States. Our PVS will be providing private utility locate to the EPCOR's electricity utility assets in Alberta. We continue to find opportunities to participate in thought leadership. OEC recently partnered with the University of Western Ontario's Ivy and Western Engineering programs and hosted a session at the Oakville Convention Centre on Transforming for the Future, Insights into Ontario's Energy Transition. Over 100 people from the industry attended, and speakers such as Scott Moody, our COO of Oakville Hydro, he presented the local distribution perspective. Leslie Gallinger, our CEO of the IESO, she provided the provincial perspective, and Frances Bridley, the CEO of Electricity Canada, provided the national and international perspective. The session was moderated by our own Jeff Mocha, who's the Chief Technology Innovation Officer at OEC, and the feedback was very positive, and this was a very good brand development initiative. Through our company Planned Utility Services, OEC was recognized with the Customer Service Award by the Ontario Energy Association for its development of One Window. The solution is a leading-edge location intelligence tool that enables the collaboration of over 60 local distribution companies, over 400 municipalities, natural gas distributors, and internet service providers in a single, spatially enabled online platform. We are committed to our diversity, equity, and inclusion program, and pleased to advance our Indigenous Relations pillar in Western Canada with our Director of Indigenous Affairs and the Progressive Aboriginal Relations Certification. The initiative builds and maintains relationships with the Indigenous communities whose traditional territory we operate in. The certificate program ensures our performance in leadership actions, employment, business development, and community relations. And with that commitment, on September 30th, we had our colleagues all across Canada wear their orange shirt in honor of the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Safety is our top priority. Oakville Hydro was recognized with the Industry Award by the Infrastructure Health and Safety Association for achieving 2 million hours worked with no lost time injury. 2 million hours of hours worked with no lost time injury represents 10 years of working safely, including the countless hours of emergency work in the wind, rain, snowstorms, and extreme temperatures. This award recognized a significant and industry-leading accomplishment. Oakville Hydro has also launched a new website with customers in mind and focusing on improving the overall user experience. It is also an initial step for the required Green Button initiative. Once implemented later this year, residential and business customers will have more choice on how to access their usage data and will be able to unlock opportunities to increase energy efficiencies. On September 18th, together with their families, employees came together to participate in the Terry Fox Run, raising funds in support of Terry Fox Canada and the Terry Fox Research Institute. That concludes OEC's business highlights for this quarter and updates. With the ongoing dynamic environment, we continue to grow for the future while finding opportunities to give back to the communities. Thank you for your time this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kapiti. Councillor Duddick?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. Exciting times as always. Just a sort of, I guess, a somewhat mundane, but it affects a lot of us. Have we made any progress regarding the monthly billing and combining the regional water along with the hydro billing? Right now, we get one that is hydro and then get the other one, which is usually much higher, which is the regional one. Is there any advancement in terms of aligning the two of them together so it's more streamlined?
For you, Mr. Mayor, we do have discussions with the region often because of that swing from month to month, and I think they are working on some initiatives. There's nothing in the short term, but I know they're working on making some advanced infrastructure changes to their water billing, which I think over time will coincide with monthly billing.
Maybe some of our regional colleagues, we can say something at the region. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sure that would be a welcome move, Councillor. And you're one of them too, aren't you? Yes. Okay. All right, we'll turn now to Councillor Robertson, Councillor Haslett-Deal, and Councillor Adams and Councillor O'Meara. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you very much for the presentation. First thing I wanted to say is thank you for the invitation to go to the Energy Transition Forum, because Councillor Haslett-Deal and I both went. I took copious pages of notes at it, and I was wondering, would you ever consider doing something like that for the public? So instead of just the industry, that we could invite the public players into, because I found it so informative.
It was actually on Twitter, so it was available, maybe not as showcased. This was our first time, but it can be for the public.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. And the second thing I wanted to say is kudos for your work, your 10 years of work-free injury. That's amazing, and thank you very much for that kind of atmosphere for your workers.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Haslett-Deal.
Thank you for your presentation tonight, and I recognize that Green Button is on its way, which will be very helpful. No surprise, I think, to someone. I do want to ask the question about any progress on the communication tools that will alert the public to the outages and why. One of the reasons for my follow-up is the new website, while it has lots of positives, you still have to hunt for where the outage information is. So I'm wondering if there's progress on alerts, on beyond Twitter, because not all our residents obviously use Twitter.
So the Oakville Hydro team, after the storm, has put in place and sort of trying to advance third parties to ensure that we have the alerts on a more timely basis, because I know that was a hard time a few months ago. And our teams are continuing to advance that file. I can't speak specifically to where they are in the process, but it is top of mind for sure, because as time goes on, climate change, and there is more and more of these happening. So the team is really working to ensure that we make improvements.
Thank you, Councillor Haslett-Thiel. Councillor Adams?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Oh,
Just one
Mr.
little-
Lister.
Just one little add to that. So texting to customers when they have an issue, like a problem, or to notify them is something that's a high priority for us. I can't give you a date as to when we're going to be able to do that, but we are working on that, and it's our intent as the next feature to be able to put into our customer information systems, the ability to text customers and receive text back around outages. So we are working on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Adams?
Thanks very much. I just wanted to really highlight my thanks to the work that you did in trying to explain some of the other businesses that OEC is in, other than the Oakville Hydro distribution element of what you guys do. It's really important not only to our citizenry and our residents, but it's really important for us in terms of our finances and making sure that we're able to cover things like our Oakville Hospital donation that we made years ago, being able to grow ourselves into being able to do additional things into the future. It's a really, really core piece of our financial plan into the future, and so I wanted to highlight our thanks to you for those efforts. I think it's something that we need to continue to work at explaining to the public, because it's becoming increasingly important for us in terms of our ability to deliver services, deliver programs, deliver new capital projects to our community. And I think our residents need to understand that Oakville Hydro isn't just the old distribution network system. It's a lot more than that. And I don't think that the general public has a great awareness of the many, many moving pieces that you've got in OAC, providing that dividend to us that is really becoming important to us. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor O'Meara?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm interested in Oakville Enterprises Corporation's take on how you feel that the community energy task force is doing, and what your viewpoint is on that, and where you think we are, and where whether you think we're trotting along at the right pace here.
Well, I would say we've been at the table since the beginning of the task force with Councillor Longo, and I believe now that the plan is sort of more formalized. I know we were working to what the outcomes were going to be, and I think we would continue to partner with advancing that plan so that Oakville can achieve the future that we want in the timeline, in the timeframes. So we're happy to support, as OEC, to support the community and the town of Oakville.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor O'Meara. Councillor Longo?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for the presentation, Ms. Caputi. You mentioned about supply chain issues. How is OEC and the divisions managing the supply chain issues when it comes to preventative maintenance and having parts for builds and things like that? You mentioned, Mr. Lister mentioned Northwest Oakville, there was a transformer that was malfunctioned. Are you doing, what are you doing, I guess, in order to prevent stocking out of things so that you can actually maintain the networks?
So I would say we were doing two main things. One is continue to build relationship with our supply chain partners, because that's important. And then the other part is we're looking for alternate solutions. So we've had to go to the States for certain parts on the transformers in order to get our supply. We do plan early enough so that we are not especially short on preventative maintenance for these kind of outages. So we've definitely had to plan more effectively than maybe in the past in order to ensure that our supply chain partners have the product for us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Longo. Councillor Elgar?
Thank you. Through Mayor Burton to OEC, I'm starting to hear people saying, why don't we just reduce the hydro rates? Can you maybe explain how the hydro rates at Oakville Hydro are determined?
The hydro rates are determined through the Ontario Energy Board. They are the provincial regulator in which every utility goes before the board, presents their costs, their assets, requirements, and then there's a formula in which rates get formulated. And so it's a process, and everyone has different costs depending on where they are, whether they're urban or suburban areas or rural areas, and they go through a process, and rates are then determined, and those are the rates that utilities can charge.
So Oakville Hydro itself does not set the rate.
Pardon?
Oakville Hydro does not set the rate itself.
That is correct.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Let me just jump in here to get you to cover off. There's a monthly fee that Oakville Hydro charges, but the electricity, the commodity, the power, that's priced by the province, isn't it?
That's correct. So 20% of the bill is the fee that goes to Oakville Hydro to operate, and 80% is a flow through to the province. So it's electricity that's consumed and paid to the province, and we're just the billing agent for that piece.
So we, in fact, we get no markup whatsoever on the power. Is that right?
That's correct.
And is it in fact the case that sometimes, because of the way the power is calculated by the province, we pay them more than we can actually collect?
That is correct. So we're paying the province right away, and sometimes it takes us a longer period of time to collect from our customers, and there is no exact one-to-one relationship.
So if we have a customer who doesn't or can't pay, we have to pay for them. The province doesn't allow us to pass through to them the non-payment.
There is no pass-through of bad debts.
Thank you. I hope that helps everybody understand the miracle that is the operation called Oakville Hydro, which manages to survive despite those pretty big negative factors in their business. Let's turn now to, are you done, Councillor Ogres? Then let's turn now to Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks for the presentation. Thank you to the team for the great job that you always do. I hate to bring up the four-letter word that's going to offend everybody right now, but snow is coming soon. And I know that you're probably aware that in our ward, in Ward 5 last year, we had a snowplow incident where a transformer was uprooted by a snowplow, which caused a considerable amount of damage to the street. I'd raised this before, and I know that staff are going to go away and come up with some ideas potentially of how some of those transformers could be better marked, or there could be better training or something in order to avoid a reoccurrence of that situation. With the seemingly larger amounts of snow we get every year, it's inevitable that these transformers do get covered. Has there been any movement in that direction at all that we can look forward to this year? I really dug deep for that question for you.
I will have to take that back, and I will definitely.
I'd appreciate an update, because I know that in the area where that occurred, I've already heard questions about it again, because they don't want to see that happen yet again, because it was
I will commit to get back to you.
Quite difficult for the area. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Councillor. In defense of Oakville Enterprises and Oakville Hydro, I'm not sure we actually tasked Hydro with that. I think we tasked town staff who operate the snowplows to help us with that. Madam CAO, would you like to jump in here?
Yes, I think part of the discussion through you, Mayor Burton, was through our planning processes. There are better locations in order to locate them in the first place, which is a longer term piece. You're not going to see something this year on that, but also some other way to display them, accent them on the street. So those are a lot of the design options that we would do through our own process, certainly in consultation with OEC.
Just for clarity, Your Worship, I know that both sides of this, and I know that the town on the more longer term planning side, but I know I had some commitments, and I'm not holding anybody's feet to the fire, because I know it takes time, but I know the hydro folks had said that they would come back with some potential solutions as well for the existing transformers, but thank you for raising that.
Well, in the meantime, let's put flags on them and operate our snowplows more effectively. I'm kind of a first things guy when it comes to solving problems. Councillor Giddings?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, there was an announcement last week from the province. They've directed the IESO to generate an additional 4,000 megawatts of capacity and/or storage over the next couple of years, because the surplus we've seen for the past decade is heading the other direction. Any comments or concerns or any effect that this is going to have on us?
We don't have any concerns how it's going to affect us, and I think we want to change it into an opportunity for us to consider partly storage as well. And we do some other renewables, so that it's an opportunity for us to potentially participate with some partners on this.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Councillor Elgar?
Yeah, just a quick question on the infrastructure we have in place. If everyone purchased an electric vehicle, would our infrastructure work?
Currently, we have enough capacity based on the EVs that are in our system, and through our COO of Oakville Hydro, Scott Moody, he continues to say that we do have enough capacity in the pockets of Oakville, but we are continuing to watch the adoption rates and how quickly they are being adopted and what it is doing to our electrical grid. And we have to plan properly as we start seeing adoption rates
So
continue
every
to
new
rise.
development we are doing now in Oakville, is the cabling there that will take 200 amp service in all houses?
That is correct.
It is. That's a good thing. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Ms. Caputi, maybe you could just delve a little deeper into how the hydro rates, the fee that Oakville Hydro gets to charge is based on our capital investment, and how we continually seek permission to invest more in infrastructure in order to keep up with growth. And or it could be that my question is containing the answer that I wanted, so either way.
So
But there's an
Oakville Hydro
opportunity here to educate the public that we don't sit still.
That's right. So the Oakville Hydro does prepare a distribution system plan, which is a 5-year plan to Mayor Burton's point, what our capital investment needs are for system renewal, for system expansion, for the uncontrollable road winding, all the costs that associated with that. And that is done through a third party and then evaluated by the Ontario Energy Board and gets accepted as a reasonable amount of capital that's required in order to run the electricity grid at reasonable rates.
And would it be fair to say that the Energy Board has heard of electric vehicles and is understanding that there's an upgrade required all over Ontario?
I would hope so.
Yeah, let's hope. So thank you very much. I wonder if I could get a motion to receive all the information. Councillor Elgar, thank you. Before I call the vote, I want to take a second to brag about something. I just learned that while debating how to fund their $150 million donation to their new hospital, and I hope you remember that we had to donate $130 million to ours, Ottawa took notice of how Oakville managed to fund our donation to our state-of-the-art hospital without using taxes. And their report indicates that everybody else has had to use taxes, and it looks like they will too. At their Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting, the City of Ottawa's Chief Financial Officer said, and I quote, 5 municipalities have done a contribution through the use of their reserve funds as a one-time contribution that amounts to using tax money. And some have also contributed capital works. And then she went on to say, there's a very unique solution in the town of Oakville. They made a one-time contribution through the sale of their hydro's telecom arm. I think it was about $40 million. And they had also issued debt, which I believe was about $90 million. She's right. Which is paid off through incremental annual hydro dividends that they receive. The Ottawa Citizen even covered this mention of Oakville's example. So in fine, our hydro dividend, or more accurately, our Oakville Enterprises dividend, has allowed us to fund infrastructure and keep pressure off of tax increases. That's allowed us to keep tax increases for the last several years well below inflation. Enbridge's investment, of course, will take Oakville Enterprises to its next stage of potential faster than possible without that investment. Our alliance will be a big boost to Council's commitment to develop new non-tax investment revenues for our new facility and infrastructure expectations without putting pressure on property taxes. Is there any objection to Councillor Elgar's motion? Madam Clerk, there being none, that's carried. Now, Council, you've all read the report about the sad discovery that the structure at 3017 Old Bronny Road was not able to be reconstructed because of its severe disrepair. And so you have a motion before you for item 9.2 that the notice of intention to repeal bylaw 2022-95, a bylaw to designate the former Palermo Methodist Church parsonage at 3017 Old Bronny Road as a property of cultural heritage value or interest, be issued subject to recommendations 2 and 3 in the report before you. Councillor Giddings?
Be happy to move it.
Thank you. Is there an objection to this motion? Madam Clerk, there being no objection, I declare that carried as well. We have no confidential discussion items, but there is the advisory committee minutes from the Accessibility Advisory Committee and the Heritage Oakville Advisory Committee. And the recommendation from the Accessibility Advisory Committee includes, well, the motion is that the minutes be approved and the remainder of the minutes be received. And the distinction being there that there's a request from Ruth Sheridan, a member, and a submission from Envision Oakville Peer Support Group to double the size of street signage at main intersections and yellow lines or sections and areas of pavement painted on slopes leading to streets. The Accessibility Advisory Committee requests that the submission from Ruth Sheridan, AAC member, on behalf of Envision Oakville Peer Support Group, be referred to the Transportation and Engineering Department for comment, and as I've already indicated. So I'm looking for a mover for this report. Councillor Robertson, thank you. Is there any objection? There being none, Madam Clerk, I declare that carried. And then we turn to the Heritage Oakville Advisory Committee minutes, and there is a recommendation pertaining to items 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4 of their minutes from the meeting of September 27th to be approved, and the remainder of the minutes to be received. And Councillor Duddick, would you like to move this?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Duddick. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection, that's carried. Thank you, everybody. It would now be in order for a motion to rise and report to Council. Councillor Knoll, thank you. Is there any objection? There being no objection, that carries. I rise and report the Committee of the Whole has met and made recommendations on consent items 7.1, 7.2, confidential consent items 8.1, 8.2, discussion items 9.1, 9.2, and advisory committee minutes recommendations 11.1 and 11.2 as noted by the clerk. Is there a mover and seconder for this report? Councillor Sanju and Councillor Lischina, thank you. Any objection? There being no objection, the report is adopted. Council, I'm going to skip over the recitation that you have your information and outstanding issues items, and maybe I'm not. Councillor Adams.
Thank you very much. I don't have any issues with 13.1, but on 13.2, I wanted to thank our staff for the memo regarding the Urban Forest Strategic Management Plan. In particular, I wanted to note the what I think is a significant improvement in the canopy cover to 31.2%, which is an increase from the 26.5% since 2005. It's a very significant change. And so I wanted to thank our staff for citing that information to us and I look forward to the next steps in this planning work. And then the second thing was the 13.3, the memo regarding the municipal enforcement services and the Burlington Coyote Incident Impact Response. There's a report there and a whole bunch of information with respect to the review of and response to some options that were being put forward by residents. And I wondered if staff have a plan, or if they could create a plan to provide that information to the number of people who have come forward to us concerned about coyotes in our neighborhoods. I know that Councillor Lischina and I have had a number of discussions with our residents about coyote management, and I know that there would be some interested parties in our communities, and I wondered if staff have some options to be able to provide this information to those who have come to the town asking about what we're doing about it. Just to close the loop, basically.
Absolutely, through you, Mayor Burton. We can certainly provide that information. We do a number of workshops throughout the town, and so we could arrange for one within Ward 6, for example, or any of the other wards, which we have done on a regular basis in order to fill that need.
Yes, we certainly have done a workshop this past year with our residents. What I really wanted to do is just make sure that this the Burlington Coyote Incident Response information was circulated to individuals who had come to us about it, because it did come up as a point of discussion in our discussions with our residents when we met with them previously. So I'm not sure if that information is sort of widely understood that it's out there. That's really what I was getting at.
Yeah, the information is available on the council agenda.
Yeah.
We can certainly make arrangements to circulate that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's made. I know it's here, but they don't know to look, is what I'm getting at. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Very good and welcome points both. I now would skip down to item number 17, request for reports. I've been made aware of a request for report, and I believe the movers are Councillor Longo and Councillor Giddings. Councillor Longo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. The request for report is related to the climate emergency action. Do you want me to read it out, or do you want to display?
I'm hoping the clerks can put it up, as you know, the public has an interest in this. And we'll just take a second to see if it appears, and then you could read it too.
Okay.
We'll see and say. There you go.
Perfect, thank you. And so the request for report is that staff be requested to work with Oakville Energy Enterprises Corporation, OEC, and Future Energy Oakville to jointly conduct a workshop for council on the energy retrofit program, including a summary of the status and analysis undertaken to complete the feasibility study, outline options for advancement, including identifying roles and responsibilities, details on the scope and timing of the business plan, and lastly, any options for expediting future studies and approaches to implementation.
Is there, Councillor Giddings, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'm pleased to see the motion come forward before us, Mr. Mayor. The session described will provide an opportunity for the public and council to see where we are, ask questions, review options, and participate in this exciting endeavor.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Shall I, Councillor Chisholm?
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question with respect to the retrofit and having council involved in a workshop and so forth. Is there any intent, once we get past the council's orientation and background on this, would we be going to the public doing some workshops on the retrofitting program?
If I understand your question, the answer is yes.
Okay. And who would facilitate that, those workshops for the public?
Well, as it's proposed here, it would be the task force, Future Energy, and OEC. And I thank you for raising the point, because it's vital that the public participate and actually undertake the actions to energy-proof their homes, or we're not going to make any progress. I guess it's going to boil down to this. If we're waiting for everybody else to do things and none of us are doing it, then nothing's going to happen. So the great problem here is council has no authority to force you to any of us to energy retrofit our homes. Some of us have voluntarily done it because we appreciate the need and we enjoy the savings in the operating costs. And we hope someday that the costs and the savings will equal out. Certainly this is everybody has to participate or nothing's going to be achieved situation. And there's no ability to order anybody to play. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you.
All right, may I put the vote? Is there any objection to the request for a report? Madam Clerk, I'm going to assume that Councillor Chisholm's hand is not an objection, and I'll declare the motion carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. It would now be in order for a mover and seconder for consideration and reading of the bylaws. And Councillor Duddick?
Your Worship, I wonder if before we do that, if we could take a moment and just congratulate our colleague, Oakville's Mr. Green Jeans, Councillor Elgar, on his birthday.
Oh. And he doesn't look a day over 17.
No.
I think before I ask for the consideration of reading of the bylaws, let me just ask if there are any members' comments. Councillor Lischina, did you have something you'd like to say this evening? You have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's been 7.5 months since the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and the Ukrainian people have been fighting valiantly for their freedom and democracy. Many villages, towns, and cities have been liberated, and many crimes against humanity have been discovered. What we're seeing is that Russia is losing its war of aggression on the battlefield, and they're taking their terror attacks now to civilians. Yesterday, on October 10th, Russia launched a wave of massive long-range missile attacks against large cities all over Ukraine, targeting residential areas, parks, playgrounds, universities, hospitals, and energy infrastructure. Many of these cities are now without electricity and water supply. This is an attempt by Putin to intimidate the Ukrainian people and all the allies across the world. But this horrific and indiscriminate attack on peaceful Ukrainian cities and Ukrainian civilians has actually intensified the determination, resilience, and unity. And tonight, the Ukrainian Canadian community and many supporters are demonstrating in front of the Russian embassy in Toronto to show support for Ukraine and to ask allies around the world to intensify their military assistance to help protect the skies and to stop the deadly Russian aggressor. I want to thank all of you for your continued support. And although I'm not able to be at the rally, I know that all of us are there in spirit and send a strong message of condemnation of this brutality. Slava Ukraini, Heroyam Slava. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lischina, for those moving words. Council, it would now be in order for a mover and seconder for the consideration and reading of the bylaws. Councillor Grant and Councillor Robertson, thank you very much. Is there any objection? Madam Clerk, there being no objection, the bylaws as listed in the agenda are considered and read. And that includes the delegated authority bylaws. So item 18.1, 2 and 3, and 19.1 and 19.2. So I want to thank everybody for your diligence and your great contributions to this meeting and your many fine questions. And I get to announce that that is the end of the work for this meeting. And we'll see you on November 7th for the last and final meeting of this term of council. That ends our meeting. Good night.